The 15-minute city is what we're aiming for, that everything you need to live should be within 15 minutes walk from where you live. My future dream project, wow, interactive, multimodal mobility hubs. Well, urban density is increasing the chance to run good public services like rail, underground, trams, buses. If they can come with a very high frequency, then the acceptance is raised. I'm Rudi Scheuermann, I'm working at Arup. I'm a director for global building envelope design.
So Rudi, you are pretty much the green hand of Arup.
Well, I wouldn't say I'm the only green hand in Arup, but I'm one of the green hands in Arup, I guess, yes. During the pandemic, it became very clear that when people are being locked into their flats, into their houses, without access to parks and green spaces, without gardens that they have at hand, then it is getting much more difficult for people to actually relax and to have the sort of outside, the outdoor experience. And with Green Building Envelope, we reckon that we could provide a lot more this feeling in the city of having recreational space close to where you live. The 15-minute city is what we're aiming for, that everything you need to live should be within 15 minutes walk from where you live.
So the building behind us is a very special one.
Yeah.
It's the first building with a bio skin, if I can call it that.
Yeah, it's the first time that we've actually used the idea of a heat sink, where we absorb the heat rather than rejecting it. It's the first time that we use shading coefficient by natural living organisms. It comes with the weather. If we have a lot of sunshine, we bubble in CO2, and with UV light and CO2, the algae grow. The more they grow, the greener the fluid gets. The greener the fluid, the more you have sun shading. Sun shading is then better when there is a lot of sun, which is a natural sort of combination of effects that come together. If you don't want the sunshade, you run the pumps faster and you harvest the algae, and then the fluid becomes lighter green. Less green in the fluid means more sun can go through, less of a sun shading. Bioalgae are much more expensive in the food industry than their value is in terms of energy. But the idea was that we ferment them and produce biogas, and with the biogas we run the furnace to heat the usable water over 60 degrees to make it free of bacteria and so on. The CO2 produced through that furnacing process is then being used again to feed the algae, and on the roof is photovoltaic, so all the pump electricity comes with the photovoltaic, so it's an energy plus building. We have more energy than we actually use in the building. Originally we wanted to work with perspex rather than glass, because perspex is more UV transparent, so we could have harvested a bit more green algae. But what we found out is that due to the bubbling in of CO2 and the permanent vibration that creates, the perspex fatigues much faster, and then it would break after a couple of years. So we had to switch to glass because there is a higher resistance and a higher strength.
So one of the major benefits with greenery in cities is heat reduction.
Absolutely, but also not to be neglected is the fact that they filter fine dust too. Fine dust is one of the diseases causing the diseases for almost 2 billion people in the world, and that's very threatening for the health of people in cities. The finer the leaves, the better they are for filtering fine dust. But if you have green in the streets themselves, you reduce the upheating of the facades. We have so much thermal absorbing material in our cities that the heat is being absorbed, and where would you want to go? It has to be re-emitted overnight. And therefore we have the benefit that the cities cool out better at night. And That makes it easier, and we need less air conditioning in cities. And natural cooling is something that we can use better, especially if the air then is also cleaner. And if it's growing on substrate on the walls, we also have the sound damping effect, which then helps to have natural ventilation with cooler air, with less polluted air, and also with quieter ambience noise around. The buildings give us a lot of area more than the footprint that we built on. So if we steal the footprint of 100%, we get 500% generally in building envelope, which we can use to establish green on the facades. And if we take 20% of that, we give 100% back, which is exactly the footprint, as if there was no building standing in the street.
Urban density could actually be a positive thing, because that's usually not how we interpret the idea of urban density.
Well, urban density is increasing the chance to run good public services like rail, underground, trams, buses. If they can come with a very high frequency, then the acceptance is raised. If the acceptance is raised, then we reduce individual traffic with cars. Less cars in the city gives us more space for bikes, for e-biking, for e-scooters, but also for pedestrians. I mean, creating more mixed-use street surfaces is enhancing the quality for pedestrians in the city, and to encourage to walk in the city is also very good for the health of people. When I look around here, I think this is a very pleasant environment as a public place, and yet it fulfills infrastructure purposes of being the flood barrier of Hamburg. This is sort of the lower flood barrier level, the promenade here, but we see at the back where we have the flood level barrier, and some of the shops spilling out here on the lower promenade are being fitted with flood doors, so if the spring flood comes, then they can be closed and the shops being protected. So, you know, we get a very lively promenade here, which is a great place for people to be and to spend time. And we talked about it before, sort of the public spaces where people mingle, all sorts of people of different backgrounds, different religious and different ethnic groups. You know, this is a place where they come together and where they practice tolerance with each other. And I think it's a great place, despite the fact that it's an infrastructure which is necessary for the city of Hamburg to protect the city from the floods.
So what can we do as citizens to speed up the process towards greener cities?
I mean, first of all, every citizen can contribute by having a few green plants in your own environment. Every plant counts. So, you know, put something on your balcony, make sure you're getting green on your roofs if you can. Try to produce the odd tomato in your environment to inspire other people to do so too. We have had tomatoes, not many, but...
Oh, you actually grow tomatoes here?
Out there at the terrace, we've got pocket habitats. I mean, we've got others here who have an interest of looking after the bags, and they want to actually replant, so, you know, get their own footprint. And I think that's good, you know, because it actually helps people also during the office hours to relax and to have sort of a little break, just go and look after the plants and do a little bit of gardening here in the office. When we talk about green cities, we have to be very careful. Berlin is a very green city, but not necessarily always in the streets. We have big green parks, but not necessarily always the green infrastructure that I'm looking for in the street canyon, which isn't to say that we don't need the parks. We need them nevertheless, but the parks cannot replace the infrastructural green in the street canyon itself.
What is your future dream project?
My future dream project, wow. Interactive, multimodal mobility hubs. How does it work in a city that you can connect public transport for longer distances with short distance electromobiles, maybe scooters, maybe bikes to rent, maybe rental cars, maybe shared car systems, things like that, where you actually encourage people to leave their car at home, or maybe not even to own a car, but to have a lot of comfort by being very flexible in choosing how they get to work, how they do their shopping. And it could be every day different depending on the weather. One day it's raining and I might want to have a car. One day it's good weather and I might enjoy actually walking or taking a bike. And to provide a multimodal hub for mobility, which then also gives you the opportunity to get dry cleaners, hairdressers, kiosks, cafes in there, so that it's actually not just a duty to go there for mobility purposes, but also good fun being there, meeting people and so on, and yet having easy access to different types of mobility. I think that would be very exciting.